că în premieră la Antena 3 vedeți un documentar NATO cu asasinarea unui mare om de știință, un om care avea grijă de orașul antic Palmira, cel construit de romani acum 2000 de ani, cel care avea inclusiv urme ale debutului creștinismului în acea parte de lume. Orașul Palmira, distrus de teroriștii ISIS pe teritoriul Siriei, toată povestea a început cu decapitarea omului de știință care a avut grijă de acest oraș. Priviți această primă parte a documentarului NATO pe care îl recomand cu mare, mare căldură. Priviți!
This is Khaled al-Assad. And this is Palmyra.
He didn't want to leave this place where he spent all his life, and he dedicated all his professional career, and I would say his soul and everything that he had to protecting Palmyra.
Al-Assad spent 40 years in Palmyra protecting its cultural heritage.
Lui sentiva Palmira come proprio come una sua grande passione, era sicuramente innamorato di Palmira, cioè viveva per Palmira.
He was a great friend of UNESCO and somebody whom we respected deeply.
He was 81 years old when the terrorists arrived. Palmyra's cultural heritage was at least 2,000 years old. The terrorists didn't care. They killed both. Al-Assad was the human embodiment of Palmyra's heritage. He was not only an expert on Palmyra, he had been its guardian. He was killed because he would not reveal where some of Palmyra's greatest treasures were hidden. He took that secret with him to his death. But why? What drives terrorists' fascination with cultural heritage? And what can be done to stop them, especially in this particularly destructive time?
This is one of the darkest, I would say, periods or decades of destruction of heritage.
The way that the terrorists from Daesh dealt with Al-Assad was the same way they treated Palmyra, brutally. But the aim was the same, to deprive the people and country of parts of its identity, to eliminate common symbols, knowledge, and even people.
It's really, it's a cowardly, I would say, a crime that had the same strategy to terrorize the people and to tell them that there are no limits to the criminal activities. We were very sad, very angry with this.
Le persone semplici in Siria, in Iraq, come in Italia, secondo me, o in Grecia, non è che sanno esattamente l'età di Giulio Cesare, di Platone o di Al-Mansur, però questo non significa, loro sono abituati ad avere accanto a loro una certa natura e una certa cultura e noi non possiamo assolutamente privare queste popolazioni di quella natura e di quella cultura.
Heritage sites are not only bricks and stones, not just beautiful buildings, engravings, or a beautiful manuscript. It is also about values, about human values. And that is why extremists destroy this systematically, because they want to erase memories, they want to erase history. They know very well that by destroying heritage, they attack identities of people. They want to make out of people some robots, to submit them to a total domination.
The tactics used by the Daesh terrorists in Iraq and Syria have been replicated in other parts of the world, such as Mali.
Talking about Mali, unfortunately, 16 of the mausoleums were destroyed. There were damages on the Djerengaber, the main mosque in Timbuktu. And some 4,000 manuscripts have been burned out of maybe more than 300,000. But it's not the number. I think each manuscript burned was a huge tragedy because they're invaluable testimonies of Islamic thought, of culture, of astronomy, of medicine, of philosophy.
Chiaro che spesso la distruzione, pensando per esempio a questi Buddha che sono stati distrutti a Bamiyan in Afghanistan, ricchissime città dell'Iraq o della Siria che vengono distrutte, oppure il ricchissimo patrimonio architettonico dello Yemen sono stati o vengono distrutte proprio con il proposito di in qualche maniera danneggiare o di cancellare il passato di un popolo.
But there is another element in terrorists' relationship with antiquity, and it's money. Despite the Daesh terrorist group ordering the destruction of major cultural symbols like Palmyra, it had no problem selling smaller, stolen antiquities to fund its activities. To ensure that these stolen artifacts didn't slip into the legal market, different bodies started to collaborate. Christie's of London, one of the world's best-known auction houses, made sure that it was involved.
About 10 years ago, we began to have very close contacts with UNESCO, and that was our initial sort of start to the strong relationships that we've now developed. So we work now with very closely with organisations like Interpol, UNESCO, but also with local law enforcement.
The region terrorised by the Daesh group was particularly important for antiquities. The group controlled an area dubbed the Cradle of Civilization, which contains over 4,500 archaeological sites, at least 7 of which are World Heritage Sites. So protecting those sites was important not just to cut off funding, but to protect an area of global value. When it comes to police expertise in tracking antiquities crimes, few can match Italy's Carabinieri.
L'Italia ha il patrimonio culturale più importante al mondo, quindi ha sentito questa necessità ancor prima proprio perché aveva il dovere di tutelare il proprio patrimonio culturale.
As it is home to a wealth of cultural heritage, Italy has developed the expertise, knowledge and tools to track down stolen antiquities.
La banca dati dei beni illecitamente sottratti è effettivamente la più importante al mondo perché contiene un patrimonio informativo unico. Il nostro patrimonio informativo contiene circa 6 milioni di dati. Noi abbiamo fatto dei corsi a favore di numerosi paesi per presentare il nostro modello di banca dati.
And they are bringing together police forces from across the world.
Abbiamo realizzato quella dell'Interpol, praticamente il comando carabinieri di tutela del patrimonio culturale è stato project leader proprio in un progetto finalizzato a realizzare la banca dati a favore dell'Interpol.
And the collaboration has already led to results.
We worked with them in an operation that resulted in an arrest and the seizure of an object which had been looted from Italy, and that was a sort of right across Europe. We were involving the Carabinieri, the Dutch police, and it was as a result of our work in terms of our due diligence that happened.
And these techniques are being used to tackle the sale of antiquities coming from conflict zones like Iraq and Syria.
The first question that we will ask is, when an object comes to us, is where has it come from and what evidence have you got that it is of legitimate origin? So, for instance, in a situation where we're dealing with Iraq and Syria, we would need documentary evidence or photographic evidence that this object has been in legitimate circulation well before the conflict started.
These techniques focus on dealing with stolen antiquities, a problem which increased in the chaos following the downfall of Saddam Hussein. Previously, his authoritarian regime had made stealing antiquities a crime that could be punishable by death.
Saddam Hussein, per proteggere il patrimonio culturale, aveva deciso che casi gravi avrebbero previsto la pena di morte, l'ha applicata per uno scavo clandestino nella regione assira, identificato il colpevole e questo è stato giustiziato.
In the disorganization after Saddam's fall, there were many opportunities to steal artifacts, particularly from Iraq's museums.
Sono accadute delle cose gravissime e riprovevolissime, come per esempio il saccheggio nel 2003 del museo di Baghdad durante l'inizio dell'occupazione americana. Soltanto dopo una settimana intervennero le truppe dei Marines americani a protezione del museo, ma molte cose erano già gravemente accadute.
One of the museums that suffered the most was the Mosul Museum.
We did have a situation where an object was presented to us in 2004 during the Iraq War, it was a very valuable old manuscript of great art historical importance, which we managed to identify through our due diligence to have come from the Mosul Museum. So we reported that to our art and antique squad here. They took the item, it was returned to the Mosul Museum, and I believe the person was arrested.
For the thieves, the artifacts are just another way of making money.
When I was in Iraq, I asked Prime Minister al-Abadi, I said, you should know probably better also who are these groups they organize this looting and this trafficking, and the answer was very clear, that it was the same, it were the same warlords that were, these were not some lovers of art or collectioners, but the same groups that are trafficking oil or drugs or smuggling weapons and human beings. It is just a way of financing their criminal activities.
And the terrorists who see the value of these objects will try to get people to find more, either through incentives or through threats.
We've seen, for instance, in Syria, is satellite imagery of craters, huge numbers of craters being dug by people who are seeking to find things on archaeological sites. You will find those same craters in pretty much every other conflict zone or country which is susceptible to this type of activities.
Conflicts provide ideal conditions for those looking to profit from antiquities. Afghanistan is a country that's been at war for around 40 years. When the Taliban came to power in 1996, they introduced severe policies on antiquities. Anything that represented a living object was to be destroyed. One of the most famous destructions was of the Bamyan Buddhas, which had stood for around 1,500 years. At that time, this man risked his life to protect and hide some of Kabul Museum's greatest treasures from the Taliban.
باشه من تابلوهایی را با آوردم که پیش از اینکه من در گالری ملی باشم این را در دوران طالبان از بین برده بودن و حالا خواستم که برای شما به نمایش بگذارم و بعد از اینکه ما آمدیم داداس‌ها را ما به طور کلی حفظ کردیم تا کور کردیم پوش کردیم میشه که اینجا ما برای شما بانم و شما ببینید که چه رقم.
But why did he risk his life for art?
علتش بود که یکی من خودم هنرمند بودم، اکادمیک تحصیل کرده بودم و یکی از اهداف هر هنرمند است و رسالت هر هنرمند است که باید داشته‌های خود حفظ بکنن. والا در اون دوران خب واقعا شما بدونید که در دوران طالبان یک سلسله مشکلات زیاد بود و نمیخواستن که هنرمندها دست آزاد باز. اون وقت یک کس رئیس فرهنگ بود آمد ما هم رای صحبت کردیم که این زیروی گپا چطور میشه چیکار میشه گفت برو بدر شما را در این گپا غرض نیست بانیم. اون تا تهدیدات زیاد بوده که شاگردا یا کسایی که زیرو کار میکرد آمده گفته زیرو کار نکنین. یک تعداد تابلوها را دیدم که زیرو است پیش از اینکه یا تابلوها را از بین ببرم من اون تابلوها را خواستم مشوره با اونها کردم که پدر من اینم یارا کور میکنم که همین تابلوها خدا نخواسته نشه که به دست یک تعداد کسایی بفته که از بین بره و فامیل ما را تا اندازه چی میکردن که نشه که خدا نخواسته کدام روز مشکلاتی ایجاد شود چون ما هم علاقه‌مندی من بود به شکل بسیار مخفی میخواستم که همین تابلوها را حفظ بکنیم و چی کنیم و داشته‌های خدا با خود داشته باشیم. و این هدف ما بود ما با او هدف رسیدیم. با آنم که تاکید فامیلی زیاد بود که برای ما مشکلات هست و گپاس و بالاخره در اواخر ما برآمدیم پاکستان هم رفتیم.
These are national treasures, so why isn't the national government protecting them?
0.00 چند فیصد بودجه از این است. این بودجه را به کجا برسانه در مورد فرهنگ و هنر خود؟ این گپایی است که بزرگای ما باید توجه بکنن. حالا بسیار کسایی است که آثار قاچاق میکنن و بیرون از کشور میبرن. ما بتونیم جلو از واره بگیریم. ما چرا امور برای وطن خود نمانیم؟ برای ملت خود نمانیم؟ تاریخ خود روشن نگاه نکنیم؟
Afghanistan's Ministry of Interior recognizes that it doesn't have what it needs to address this problem.
منابع ما محدود است. ما بیشترین منابع خود در مبارزه با تروریسم استفاده میکنیم. در مبارزه با جرایم سازمان یافته و قاچاق مواد مخدر استفاده میکنیم. نیاز به همکاری و کمک مردم داریم که اونا هم در قسمت جلوگیری از قاچاق آثار عتیقه با ما همکار شوند و در شناسایی نتورک‌ها افرادی که دست دارند در قاچاق با ما همکاری بکنند.
Moving stolen artifacts out of the country requires a smuggling network. So how does this work?
نور خلق دي انډیوالان دي به توري مثال پیوجي کې یو خلک کار کې یو شی خيږي پکې یا جای معلومي پیږي کې موږ کسان پسې شو تاسو وګورئ چې شم پیدا پلاني چې تور سو موټر کې ګوري چې خپل راسيږي وای چې پلاني لمبر موټر کې موټر درغی هغه وای چې په دې باندې څوک کار نه لري راوي لګي مخ خواله چې دوی لاس نه کې مال څوک نه سره خو یو شی چاته قاچاق ورکو هغه اطمینانی کسانو ته ورکو بای وسرکو دلته ورکو په خارج کې راکوي شی ولاس پلاس ته مثلا د ما ساته بلندوال دغه سره به عکسونه اول عکسونه زی نه پیګوزا چاته زی له خو کې چې چوکې د خریدو کم نه کوم دا شی چې پلاس ورکو دوی پاکستان ته پاکستان دوبی ته رسیږي مستقیم د افغانستان دوبی ته نه زی.
Once the object is finally sold, where does the profit go?
او دا کوم شی پیسې چې دي کدي سی وای چې وازي د موږ جبته زی نزي دا لاقله موارد دا په د لوړو لاسو کې د ټول تقسیمي کی دغه بیچاره ته یو محدوده ګټه پات کیږي څلورم یې کې یو سمختنه پات کیږي درې سری بل سری جبته زی د څه شی چې دوی پر روابط کې موږ سره نه چارواکي موږ دغه شی خپل کور تر ولایت هم نسو راوړی ها صاحب په دغه کې د خپل جب دا کوزله خیر د افغانستان د آبادی د ترقی په قصه کې څوک هم نه.
Military forces and peacekeepers are often the first outsiders to reach a conflict zone. Now, UNESCO is helping prepare these forces to protect antiquities.
It's a new way of training military personnel. And we are very happy that the French are one of the first to adopt in their training of peacekeepers the notion about why it is important and the protection of culture and heritage sites. We provided the French with all the maps of heritage sites. We have prepared a special small passports for heritage.
So what lessons could NATO take from this?
And I think NATO could give a very good examples of thinking about training their troops. It will be very important for the local people in any place in the world if they see that military care about heritage and care about the culture. I think it is very important when local communities are linked to their heritage, to their culture. Then it is better protected.
NATO's founding Washington Treaty mentions protecting common heritage in its second sentence. The alliance already has experience of protecting cultural heritage in its missions, like this Serbian monastery in Kosovo.
The monasteries are often seen by the Albanian majority as some kind of foreposts of the Serbian presence here in Kosovo, and therefore they are the most logical target for some extremists if they would want to hurt perhaps the Serbian minority.
Despite concerns about protecting artifacts, everyone agrees that protecting people must come first.
By definition, these are conflict zones where there is a humanitarian crisis at issue, and it is impossible as it stands to even protect the population there. To actually put in place protection for archaeological sites would be extremely difficult.
But how strongly do people on the street in the West feel about protecting cultural heritage? For example, how far should we go in protecting heritage like the Notre Dame Cathedral?
It's going to take a world to protect it. It isn't just a country that should protect it, a world should protect it. I think it's humanity in general that we should keep safe. I don't think it's the building or whatever. I think it's the culture behind the environment. Obviously it's a national monument, it's a treasure to the people and everyone in it, but you know, they're attacking these places because they know they're important to us.
Damaged heritage can sometimes be restored, like this bridge in Mostar, Bosnia. And when that happens, it can have a major impact.
When I was walking over the bridge on Mostar, which did not have any strategic, I would say at that time, importance or military, it was just done in order to cut, to terminate, to give a message of destruction between the two communities, the Bosniaks and the Croats and the Serbs, and we reconnected them. They have rebuilt their hope for the future. They have taken again back their own identity, their own history. I think it has a powerful meaning for identities, an extremely powerful meaning also for reconciliation and for peace.